Michael Vasey here. I thought in this edition what I might do is read you some stories from my newest book, Watched from the Shadows. I'm addicted to collecting strange, macabre and scary tales of the paranormal. You can blame it on my writing hobby, having written about my own odd and often terrifying experiences in my haunted life, and my haunted life too. I started asking friends, relatives, and even strangers for theirs as well. Everyone, almost everyone, has a strange story to tell, and many of you just love to tell your weird stories. So here is a new collection collated and edited by me for your edification. I hope you enjoy them as much as I did. Readers submitted most of these stories to the website My Haunted Life 2. I've edited them sometimes dramatically and sometimes only very lightly. I have occasionally changed from the first-person narrative. However, I have not changed the substance of the stories at all. I've only made them more readable and, within the context of this book, as opposed to the website, more applicable. Thanks to all those who submit their encounter experiences to my website. I'm a collector of such incidents, and I'm very grateful to share those experiences along with my own with a broader audience. So let's begin this collection. Old houses tell some extraordinary stories. This is one of those stories from Misty. Her reaction to seeing this apparition was, well, a silent, terrified scream. The silent scream. Something about old houses evokes in me a sense of terrible majesty and loneliness. They tell a story of lost joy, forgotten love, and the fleeting frailty of human life. Lives are lived, passed on and forgotten as new families write their own history within their walls, ignorant of previous occupants' trials and tribulations. I am from a small town in the south, where life is simple and rent is cheap. My town displays the faded splendour of a luxury that has not graced these parts for well over a century. Amid the low-slung Spanish moss and an ever-encroaching sea of pollen-filled foliage lay monuments of a prosperous past, where jobs were plentiful and cotton was king. The stately mansions and homes of long ago share the narrow streets, with burned-out shacks and a culture of disposable materialism gripped in poverty. For a while, my mama and I lived on one of these streets in an old 2-story white house with tin panels from a previous age. It was somehow available for a tiny family on government subsistence. It was an odd home. The builder had thrown the bedrooms, living areas and bathrooms together in a hodgepodge menagerie to satisfy the needs of a moment. This was our moment. No one spoke of ghosts, hauntings, or restless spirits. This was just a peculiar old house whose boards and foundations groaned amid the diverse and ever-changing weather conditions of the south. Mama worked late at the hospital in town, leaving me most days to walk home from school and care for myself. My room was in the centre of the house, near what had once been a central staircase. The nearest neighbours lived a quarter-mile down the road, and there were no streetlights. The area was heavily wooded and was dark even on the brightest of days. One night I was reading The Stand by Stephen King in my room. Mama was working the night shift. I don't know if I was freaked out by what I was reading, but the house made a hollow groaning that wasn't typical for the old building. I glanced about my room. Nothing out of place. I opened my door to the hallway beyond and gingerly looked out. It was dark, like it usually was. I clicked the switch for lights in the hallway. Nothing. Fabulous. I carefully stepped into the black hallway, stretching out my arm to feel the wall as a guide, and headed in the direction of the stairs. My fingers felt every notch, indent and splinter in the old planked walls as I inched my way down the darkened hall. Just past my mother's room, I turned right to head to the stair. A large casement window let in some of the muted moonlight. I was able to step away from the wall and start making my way down to the first floor. That's when I saw her. She seemed like more of a shadow, but as I drew closer down the stairs, I made out a young girl's transparent form. She appeared to be roughly my age. We hadn't expected visitors for the night. Indeed, no one would just drop by our house. "Hello," I called out. The girl remained silent, facing away from me towards the entryway to the house. I was starting to get a little weirded out. "Do you need something? My mama ain't home right now." At the word mama, the girl turned. To this day, I have never forgotten her face, or perhaps the lack thereof. Some features may have been an eye or a mouth, but they were more similar to melted ice cream draped in light strands of wispy air. At the sight, I stopped and started trying to walk back up the stairs. I initially tripped. Pulling myself up, I screamed. The thing started climbing the stair after me. I turned and sprinted into the darkness of the hallway, stumbling on the carpet runner. The 15-some feet of hall felt like it stretched for a block, but I kept running until I found the door to my room, ran in, and slammed it behind me. I was still waiting with my back, barricading the door, when my mama got home sometime that night. All these years later, I still have nightmares of that girl. Footsteps on the roof. We had all looked forward to the family holiday for quite some time. 2 weeks in a large rented mobile home on a picturesque camping site in Brittany, France, located right on the banks of a river and also by a quality beach. My brothers had prepared their windsurfers, and now all we needed was good weather for a brilliant vacation. The campsite was nice. It was set in a lush forest that sloped down to a river. The river was filled with crystal clear greenish water at high tide, and at low tide the wet, rippled sand and occasional rocks lay revealed in the sun, while just a small trickle of water ran through the middle of where the river had been. It was ideal for windsurfing, and also for a spot of evening or morning fishing. Just a few 100 meters downstream, the river opened up into the ocean and a magnificent white, sandy beach. The mobile home was well equipped and large. My parents had the back bedroom, and my brothers had another bedroom, and me, well, I used the make-up bed in the dining area. There were many other teenagers on the site, and we would play ping-pong and drink cold orangina at night while listening to the music on the jukebox. There was a girl there that I liked too. All seemed set for a great vacation. Awakening that first morning, we set about a breakfast of French baguette, ham and cheese. The sun was shining, and we were all keen to get to the beach just as soon as possible. "Gosh, someone was walking up and down the caravan a lot last night," said my dad. "Who was it?" We all looked at each other quizzically, but none of us could recall anything but sleeping. We dismissed his comment, and off we went to the beach for a day of sea, sand, and surf. That night I was the last in, and also the last to bed. Being the eldest and in my late teens, I had a bit more leeway than my brothers, and I was quite keen to spend the time with the girl I'd just met. I entered the caravan quietly, undressed in the dark, and got into bed. Not a few moments afterwards, I heard footsteps in the caravan. I sat up, expecting to see one of my brothers. There was no one. Perhaps it was something walking on the roof, a bird maybe, I thought, as I rolled over and tried to sleep. It happened again, though. Distinct footsteps running up through the caravan. I sat up and reached for the light. Again, there was no one there. At this point, I began to feel an icy shiver running down my spine, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up on end. Could it be that whatever was in our house back home had followed us here? At home, I experienced footsteps, sighs, and poltergeist activity on and off for a while. I was pleased to go on vacation to escape from it. Had it followed us? It took me a while to sleep that night. I kept hearing the distinct noise of footsteps running up and down the caravan. Or was it something on the roof? I couldn't be sure, I decided, but I knew deep down inside that I could sense something unpleasant in that caravan. The next morning, after a disturbed sleep, I told my dad, and he nodded. He thought he'd heard footsteps that night too. My brothers had as well. Dad went out to inspect the roof. There were no tree branches or anything obvious to make any such noise. No way for anything to jump onto the roof. There was a growing and unspoken air of trepidation amongst us that morning. For the next several nights we heard nothing. However, periodically during the vacation we all heard quite plainly footsteps running through the caravan. One night we thought we also saw a dark shadow. None of us discussed the matter, for fear of encouraging whatever this activity was, until we were on our way home. I had spent most nights clutching a flashlight and burrowed down in my sleeping bag. We never saw anything other than that shadow, nor did we hear anything else, just those running footsteps. On the nights we heard them, they would repeat over and over again. A haunted caravan? Perhaps. We never really did get to the bottom of the mystery. But even now, when we discuss holidays or the strange events that happened to us all, the peculiar footsteps and dark shadows are always raised by one of us. This is G. Michael Vasey, reading stories from my latest book, Watched from the Shadows, available now at Amazon in Kindle and paperback format. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please do follow, share and like. Goodbye.